So let me
Hi.
thank everyone for attending today. Especially, I want to thank David James and Alina Mikhaleva. Am I saying that right, Alina? I always say it in my mind, but I've never said it out loud.
Yes,
Okay.
it's really close. Thank you, Mike.
And I want to thank them both for coming today and helping to present Engage and actually some recent updates and recent features, which are pretty exciting potentially. The focus today in the Zoom call portion of today's Zero event will focus on the content editor, which David James is going to introduce to us. Without preempting, it's a browser-based editor, as I understand it, and it's open to those who have a pro license and above, I presume, on the Engage platform. So we're curious to see what we can do here. And with that, I'd like to give it over to David James. Thank you very much for attending today and telling us about this content editor. And I'm actually needing to give you share screen rights, which I've done. And David, you're still muted.
There we go. Sorry, there was some noise going on in the background, so I'd muted myself. Yeah, thanks very much. Delighted to have a chat with you. And we're always really excited to have more creators come onto the platform and try out the tools. Okay, so I've just from the main menu here, I've gone into the Create tab, and I'm going to open up the Content Creator. I think maybe what I can do first is just show you the basic layout of what we have in here. We recommend using the PC to do content editing. We are looking at making it also available on the Quest 2 and similar more powerful standalone platforms. But at the moment, really, it's only geared towards use on desktop PC because naturally editing will require a more power than just simply consuming the content itself. So I've clicked on a new scene there, and the first thing you're brought to is a location. So let's see. I'll just choose the Pompeii Great Theatre here, and then once you've chosen your location, it'll load up the location, and it'll bring up our editor screen. So the idea of the editor screen is to try and give kind of a familiar interface for users, and really we're aiming at trying to make it accessible for people who maybe have done a bit of video editing and are familiar with those kind of interface concepts. Of course, as you would well know, as developers and creators yourselves, it's not a straightforward process, and developing 3D animation and content is complicated. So hopefully we've tried to boil it down into a simple enough interface. So what can the editor do? Well, on the most basic level, it is like a video editing software with your own your playhead that you can scrub through the scene, and you have your video play controls here. Excuse me, I'm just going to move my chat software off to the right. Then let's have a look here what we have. So we have undo, redo, open a file, save a file, as you would expect. So very basic, those basic kind of controls there. But over here is where we start bringing in all the different forms of media that we have inside Engage. So spatial recordings is one thing that's really useful that we have in Engage. And you can see here, the first of our media types is spatial recordings. Let's see, we have recently had the V2EC event, and I have some recordings from that. So I'll load the recording. Now, this recording was actually recorded in a different location, and it was the audience for the other location. Now, obviously, it's not going to fit in Pompeii Theatre because it wasn't recorded in the Pompeii Theatre, but I'll just pop it down here as an example. So we do spatial recordings, but often there's little aspects of spatial recordings that you might want to edit. So, for example, we have here a large group of people, and the way the recordings are structured is there's the person who's recording it, so they're the primary person, and then all the other people in the recording are considered as others. So that's just to let you know a little bit about the structure. But every single item in the content editor will have its own little cog here, and you can retime the length of the on the timeline just simply by grabbing the handles, or you can grab the item itself. And if you need to snap to a particular time, you can use the playhead as a snap tool. So here we go. If we drag the handle close to it, it actually pops to the current time on the playhead. And that's similar to some other editors out there. But all the very fine control is inside the little cog here. And also we have the same IFX options button. It's exactly the same thing. It's over here. So let's pop in and see what kind of options we have in recordings. So there's actually quite a lot of data happening in our recordings. It's not simply the position of the avatar in the scene. It's also the audio tracks are merged into an MP3 stream. Any video files that are being played on the media screens in the location are being compressed into a video stream as well. That's also recorded into our special recording format. And then all the network triggers and interactions that are happening as well. For example, if you pick up a 3D object in the scene, that's all recorded into the recordings as well. So each of these things we can actually control here by turning them on and off. So no recorded media would disable the video streams that are playing. And similarly, we can just run through all these different things. You're able to turn them all on and off selectively, including turning off the audio from people, turning on and off spatial audio, and controlling the distance the spatial audio affects things. So pretty much any function that can be recorded into the recording is available for you here. And you can also trim the start of a recording as well. We find that we use that a lot. So say, for example, at the very start of your recording, people are going, tap, 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 is this mic on? And you don't want that in your performance. You can just specify the number of seconds that you want to trim off the start, and that will do that. And then the original position is it moves the recording to where the original position of the recording was made. Obviously, you need to be in the same location that the recording was made for that to work, but that's that. And then these are just basic time controls here, but you can go in and you can set the values down to the frame value, which we, just for convenience, have set at a division of 30 frames per second. Of course, Engage is drawing much higher than 30 frames per second, but it's not really that much more useful than 30 frames per second for the editor. Okay.
David, could I ask a couple? So when you were expanding or changing the size of the animation on the timeline,
yes,
was that changing the rate of play, or was that looping it?
It loops it. So that's a really good question. So what we've done is we've made the animation loop by default. So it's an opt-out. So when you bring in a recording, it'll automatically be sized to the correct length of the recording. But in my case, I stretched it out. So what it's doing is now looping. If you want to decide that you don't want it to loop and you want it to hold on the last frame, you can do that as well. So the loop control is here, down here in the dope sheet. So you select your recording and then you go into the dope sheet, and this is the loop control here. So actually I tell a lie, it was turned off. So I've turned on the looping, the animation there. So that means it'll loop the animation. If we go back to the timeline now, we can see that they will keep moving. So as the animation keeps looping. And then if I go back to the dope sheet and turn off the looping, I did ask for it to be on by default, so I'm going to get back to the dev team on that one. If you look at it now, when it reaches the end of the animation, they just pause. You can see they paused on the last frame there.
There I would have a question.
Yeah.
My wife works as an editor in a media company, and often the clients, they get interviewed or there's a session and there's a not familiar speaker. So they are stumbling, they are stopping, they're like breathing unnicely. And in the editing job, in the end, they are deleting that and optimizing somehow the video performance of the client or of the speaking person. Is it possible to interfere several times the spatial audio recording, fix then a little freeze frame extend and go over such errors that the performance of the big thing is nicer?
I would love that. We don't have that yet. I would say yet. I can show you some behind the curtain hacks if that is interesting to you. So this is a little behind the curtain hack I can show you. I'm going to go into all the recordings that you make are put into your documents Engage and then my recordings. And all the recordings are actually zip files. So they're zip files that you can unzip. And if you have a look inside the recording, you can see it's broken down into streaming blocks. And this is the reason it's broken into streaming blocks is to keep everybody up to date. No matter what the speed of their internet is, we can always stream to the next block. So we use that to synchronize people over the network. But if you have a look inside the stream blocks, you'll see there's not one.
We're still seeing the Engage. We're not seeing.
Oh, I see. Okay, hang on. Let me stop sharing that.
Well, thank you, Martin, for that question, because I was also having done some of the spatial recording in Engage before. I was curious. I've never tried to edit the animations, to clip and segment the animation. So that was a question also on my mind as well.
Okay, you should be able to see a zip, a 7-zip. So what I was saying was these are the recordings. So in your recordings folder, if you have a look, you'll actually see their zip files.
Mm-hmm.
And if you explore inside the zip file, you'll see that it's broken down into streaming blocks. And inside each block is the motion data. And then if audio was recorded for that section of the block, then there is audio. I don't think there's going to be audio in this recording because I specifically got everyone to mute themselves. So that's one of the reasons why we're able to really compress the data is if there's no audio present when it's recording, it just doesn't record any data at all. But yeah, if you explore inside these blocks, you'll find that there's a whole lot of little MP3 files, and you can actually edit those and pack them back into the recording. Now, that's it's not a practical way of editing, but occasionally if there's just one little or you want to get rid of, you can do that. Obviously, that's a hack. The ideal is we want to have it in the editor and accessible to you as a proper feature, but in the meantime, that's a hacky way to access that if you really need to.
Before we move, so those are text files that I see that are in the streams themselves. So if I had, let's say, hypothetically, we were talking just before, and I'll restate this for those who are going to be watching this later or who weren't here in the earlier conversations. We were talking about immersive theater, and we didn't talk. We talked about it in a live context, but of course, the spatialized recording has some applications very much so in performance. And of course, I think we've all seen examples of that as well. But so, there are takes, there are multiple takes. It's not always clear exactly the moment you start recording and the moment you stop recording. Is there a way, once you have that spatialized animation, you showed a clipping at the beginning. Is there also a clip at the end, or a way to say, all right, we did 3 takes, we recorded them, we viewed them as one file, but we want the middle one, for example, or we want the first, we want the last. Is there a way to cut just the part of the animations that you want?
Not simply. I mean, you can, like, say, for example, this motion recording. Let's have a look here. Oh, you can see my editor again now, yeah?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. We see
Okay. So this motion recording here, if you wanted to end early, you would just simply draw your handle to there. And there's no, it doesn't have there's no Control Shift D like you would have on, or like on After Effects or anything. But in the long term, that is what we would like. And we also want to be able to splice recordings together. But there's still a lot of debate and negotiation we have to do with how that'll work, because it's recordings have a lot of complexity to them. It's not just a simple like a video mix. I mean, you have all the different avatar entities inside them, and you have to decide how to hook one clip up to the next. So it's not totally straightforward. But in the long term, that is what I would like for the editor. Yeah.
Then I would just, I don't know, I think it is not yet there. So, but anyway, like when I see the possibilities, my fantasy goes wild. Like in Adobe, there you can nest a multicam session. In VR, you don't have several cameras, you have the entire space. So it could be a nested multi-avatar session that I can actually separate every avatar from the other avatar and even manipulate him in the space or something.
That's a very interesting idea. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So yeah, okay, sorry. It's just flash in my mind.
No problem, no problem. And that's it. I'm delighted to hear. We want to spark ideas and interesting new use cases. So that basically that's the recordings there. So that's the first one there. IFX is the next section here. And on the most simple level, it's simply media. So in this case, I brought out a 3D object with animation on it, and it has its own set of controls as well. So we have animation overrides, and we can move and scale the objects. So that's a very simple example of an IFX, but the IFX category is a little bit misleading. It's kind of a catch-all. So we have models, but we also have audio. So like there's a helicopter audio, and we have a full set of audio controls as well. So we can loop the audio, we can do all sorts of things. Again, all the options for each IFX are available inside the little cog or down in the IFX options here. But there's a lot of hidden features inside the IFX that would not be readily, you wouldn't realize are there. So for example, in terms of making things interactive, we have something called skip to. So skip to time. So let's see if we pop that down in the timeline. So what the skip to does is it just gets the playhead to jump to another point in the timeline. So let's go and we'll tell it to start to jump back to 2 seconds in the timeline. So when we play this, you're going to see that the time will skip back once it hits that. And this can be useful because you might want to make say like a menu without any programming. And the way you can do that is, you can see the timeline skip back to the start. You just start building loops. So you can build all sorts of loops in the editor. So you could, for example, this section could be your menu section. And you could have the options like play performance of Shakespeare, play performance of Titus Andronicus or something, I don't know, whatever, whatever would be suitable for this location. And then in this section here, we can put interactive objects. So the next section I'd like to show you is triggers. So for example, here's one, a custom button trigger. And what triggers are items that the users can interact with. So I'm going to pop down a trigger, and then I'm going to go into my options here. And I'm going to put some text on it. So start experience. There we go. And then I'm just going to save that. So now you can see we have a loop section. So it's going from 2 minutes back to the start. And really it's going to keep looping that until the user presses this and starts an interaction. And to define the interaction then inside my interactive object, the button, you can see triggered effects. And if we go in here, you can see you have access to all the different interactions here. So I'm going to go to IFX and I'm going to use the skip to function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the skip to function make us jump out of the loop so we can progress to the content, whatever content we had recording. So say the content we want to show is the audience recording. We'll put that at 3:30. And then inside the interactive button, I'm going to go to, here's the skip to time. I'm going to go to the little cog again to edit that one. And I'm going to feed in the 3:30. Sorry, that's 30 minutes 30. There we go. There we go. 3 minutes 30. I'm going to save that. And now when we play the scene, I'm going to minimize that. And I can click on this and you can see it's jumped to the time. So it's a very basic and simple kind of interaction. But the nice thing about it is if you're not a programmer and you're not comfortable doing scripts, this is an easy way to put something together kind of quickly. All right, so let's have a look there. The next one is snapshots. So snapshots really are groupings of objects. And in the main engage locations, you can put down a whole collection of objects and then save a snapshot. And what it is just one single container that contains all the IFX that you put down. So let's see if I have an example of some snapshots. Let's see, I'll just load up one randomly. Here we go. This was a snapshot we put together that we were testing some effects. I'll place it down and then we'll just play. So you can see this has actually got several elements in it. Should appear in a moment. No, actually I need to be in the other location to show that one. That was designed for a different location, so it's not going to be visible here. But it was a combination of some music, IFX, and also a 3D model. So that was an example of a snapshot. And you can see they're all color coded as well. So we've given each variety of object containers their own color, so you can have a quick glance and see them easily. The next type of object is interactive, and really interactive objects are physics objects. So they're objects that have physics enabled on them, and if we bring them into the scene, once we play the scene, this object will fall down to the floor, and then the users in the scene can pick it up and throw it around, and it'll have physics behavior on it. You can see we have some options as well. We can adjust the gravity and various different options on the physics objects there. And then
we had a question from Andre, which is about the placement, the positioning of objects here in the editor. And I guess how precise? Could you give a demonstration of kind of the way you're able to position objects here in the space?
Sure, no problem. Let's go to the cow. Okay, so sometimes in scenes you're going to have very large scenes over a very large distance because some of the locations are very large and engage. So just before we manipulate the object, it's good to know that we have the locate button here. So you simply choose the IFX you want to edit and then press locate, and it'll jump in the timeline and in space at the same time to bring you to the object. And that's just a nice way to quickly navigate to what you're editing. Now let's have a look at the tools we have here. So the simple way to move things is just using the move option, and that lets you move things similar to like you do in the main engage. Basically it's grabbed in your hands and you use the scroll wheel on your mouse to move it forward and back. That's kind of the very crude manipulation that we have. Then if you need more precision, if you go back to the menu, we have the gizmos. And the gizmos offer rotation, scaling, and translation. And if you wanted to snap to the ground, so say we want our cow on the ground, you use the snap feature and it'll bring it down to the ground. So that's one way of manipulating objects. And once you can select by an axis, and then you can do very fine movements like this. And similarly for the rotation, you can do very fine movements like that.
Can you animate these manipulations?
Yes, we can indeed. Let's make the cow walk from A to B. So we'll just bring the cow around here. Let's set a key. So we have set key here. At the moment, it's a very basic implementation of it. And in fact, that is the next feature that I really want to focus in the editor. At the moment, it's only linear interpolation, but we can indeed set keys. So it's useful, but it is a limited kind of usefulness at the moment, I would say. We are going to bring in a proper full F-curve editor in the next release of the editor. And that's a feature I'm looking forward to. So we want to move our cow, and really we don't want to move them in world space. It makes more sense to move them in local space. So that's the global local switch. And I'm just going to move them in a straight line forward. So that's good. I'm happy with the new position. And then I'm going to set a key. So now Mr. Cow has 2 keys and he has his animation set up to play automatically as well. So if we play now, we'll see, there we go, Mr. Cow walking extremely slowly. Okay, so obviously that is not desirable. It's much too slow. So if we want to retime the cow, we go into our dope sheet. So we select the object we want to retime, go into the dope sheet, and here we can see our keys. And we select the key and then just drag it up. That's probably more the kind of timing we want there. I'm going to bring it back and let's play again. That's better. So you can see we have simple keyframing interaction there. And we can also scale and rotate as well. That's so we have scaling, rotation, and we can set keys from within here as well. Another little control that we have on the gizmos, just to let you know, is you can select the gizmos from here as well. But the nice thing about it is you can, if you repeatedly click the gizmo button for, say, translation, it cycles through the axis. So if you want to just quickly get to the axis that you need, you can do that. And at the moment, there's only uniform scaling, so you can't cycle through the axis for scaling. It's only a uniform scale at the moment. So yep, so there you go. That's the manipulators there. And let's have a look at some of the other functions we have here. So we have a clone option.
Before we move on,
yeah.
Can you enlarge object? Like
yes.
In the same dynamic way? Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you set the key for enlarging as well? Or how does it work?
Absolutely, yeah. There's our incredibly growing cow.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Thank you.
No problem. And yeah, so the keyable attributes would be rotation, translation, and scale at the moment. So that's the basic keyframing. We also have something called puppeteering. So one thing that's really wonderful about VR, which I find very exciting, is the fact that we have the direct motion input. So we can do our spatial recordings, but we can also we found ourselves doing spatial recordings of objects moving in VR, but we just didn't want the avatar, we just wanted the object. So that's why we created the puppeteering button. So I'm in desktop here, so it's not the ideal one, but I'm going to select my cow again, and I'm going to record puppet. And what it does is it gives me a countdown. And then once it starts recording, I can puppeteer my cow. So there we go. I have my dancing cow going across the scene. Obviously in VR, it's a lot easier, and you can use the editor in VR mode as well. And I'm happy with that. So there's my recording. And now if I play it back, you should see, there we go. That's my puppeteered cow, which is just, it's like, as an animator, I came from the games industry as an animator. Just being able to instantly puppeteer stuff so quickly got me very excited about what kind of stuff I could create, you know, so that's one of my favorite functions we have in there. And of course you can puppeteer any sort of asset you want. Like you could have sets popping up out of the ground or whatever you like there. Okay, so that's the puppeteer function. The scene info is has the attributes of the scene. So let me just expand this up a bit. So we have the title of the scene. You have a file name, which are separate. The reason the title is different because this is the title that the public will see when it's hosted on the Engage platform. So this is the title that will come up in the menus. There's the timer. So we have a function. Standard timer is what I would recommend for you, but in the early days of Engage, people often found themselves timing content to a YouTube video. So it's actually possible to use a YouTube video to synchronize the timing of your content if you want to. It's kind of a legacy feature, but it's still in there if you do need it. I, for the most part, just leave it on standard timer. Then we have the duration of the scene, which we can edit here. So we can change how long we want the scene to be. The location can be changed here. So you can swap to a different location, but at the moment, it's not possible to switch locations inside the one lesson file on the fly. it's only, you just choose the location. It's the same function essentially at the start of the scene when we chose a location.
Can you upload an own location?
Yes, yes, absolutely. The enterprise accounts are able to upload locations, and what we do is we provide the necessary scripts in Unity, and we give new enterprise users, we just give them a little briefing on how to attach the scripts and prepare their location for Engage. I'll just go back there. I don't want to change the location. And
is that the same for like IFX, for the animations and models and stuff? Is that still something that is enterprise clients, enterprise license holders are able to upload those types of objects and animations as well?
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, it's enterprise simply because we're developing kind of the back end systems, and it's a somewhat manual process right now. We're in the process of developing automated upload tools, in which case, when it becomes automated, it'll be expanded out to give more people access. That it's simply effective automation. You know, once it's automated, I expect it will be a lot more accessible to more users. And then it would just be based on the amount of storage you have in your account. You'd be able to freely upload whatever you need, and then you'd have a certain amount of hosting on our servers, I suppose, for the amount of data you have. I imagine it'll be something like that.
You know, on the subject, so we were thinking in the Immersive Theater project that I'm a part of, that if we were to do it in Engage, whether or not Engage would require, not that we didn't have the conversations yet, but we were thinking the assets that we create, the sets that we would create, or the interactables, would those be expected, or could they go into the IFX library for other people to use? Because of course, I think for most major events in Engage, those locations are then available for anyone who wants to come in and see them, or at least at the pro level. Like you can go into the ViveCon. Well, I haven't tried ViveCon, but you know, previous big events like that, those locations are accessible. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that the way that the library has grown out kind of as it's been made for an event or for a client. In many cases, that some of that goes into the library for other people to access and use.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we work with the clients on that one, and naturally, any content that you create is your own property. And we take direction from the clients on that. So we're really lucky to have some wonderful partners like Dave School, who build beautiful locations. And they built locations for their own use, but they also said, we'd like to share this with the community. So very, very kindly, they shared it with the community. And you can see, if you look through the locations on Engage, you'll see Dave School locations that they built. And yeah, so it's absolutely up to the owners of the content. If they want to share, we're very happy to make it available.
Yeah, I mean, so if a creative community were to take root and Engage, I guess that's where, you know, there would be this, the IFX library practically probably would have to be a little bit more robust in its search functionality. Because even right now, I would say it's so much in that library that it can be challenging to find exactly what you're looking for and the phrasing and stuff. And of course, if it were to grow exponentially, then that's not a trivial thing to make that practically accessible to people as well.
Now, I'm not going to open my groups tab here, but obviously I'm an admin user here, but I have access to all the different groups in Engage. When you're part of an enterprise group, you have your own private IFX tab, and that would group your personal assets. So for example, we have a lot of corporate customers and enterprise customers, and they have their own models and media and things like that that they need to share with their group. So when you have that group, your content is then grouped in its own special tab that's out of the main library. It's your own personal library there. But one of the functions that you'll probably see in the most recent update, the search function is being worked on, and this is something that we are very much aware of. The first step in search upgrades that we've been working on is to give extra options for sorting, and then additional tags and filtering options here. So you'll see we've added in a whole lot of different headings and tags, some of which were available, but it's more accessible on the single page here now. And the next stage of development for the search function is your own private favorites tag. So you'll be able to decide, oh, this is certain, this will be on a per account basis. You'll be able to say, oh, I use these particular IFX frequently. So you can just star them in the corner here and they'll appear in your favorites tab. So that's the next step of development, which we're working on at the moment for the search functions, but that would be essential. And after that, now in the back end, in our database, we've put in the structure of collections, and collections are any group of items that you want to put together. Those collections will eventually become available in this menu system. So you might have for example, if you had the virtual theater group, you could make a collection of items and brand it as the virtual theater group, and you'd have your own thumbnail icon for that as well. So that would be another way for users to more easily navigate. Again, that's the next stage of development that we have planned for the IFX menus there.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see. So, was it for some reason? I think I remember, but I could be wrong in it. There were there any partners that were creating content for Engage events? Through like I mean, you mentioned before the SDK or SDK-like support that's given to enterprise clients, but I was wondering if there were people, external creators, like some work was outsourced to them and then they would put it into Engage. And so just coming back to this idea of the library being so important as a feature, if it were again to exponentially grow with people making more and more content, I wonder if you wouldn't see people who make content for the library with the intent maybe to monetize that content. Like they're making interactable, they're making things then and like a marketplace type of thing. And obviously I just wonder if is that something you guys as Engage could say, whether or not you've been thinking about whether that would fit into your plans in the near future, this type of marketplace for creating content.
It is in the long-term roadmap. We definitely want a marketplace because we want to encourage people to create and to share, and then also to benefit from their own creation. Absolutely, that's what we want. We want Engage to be that kind of place that people can bring their creativity and also benefit from it themselves and share with the community. So absolutely, we do intend to build a marketplace shop, and that is the long-term plan for Engage as well. Let's see.
Another stroke I would like to ask. I'm still with the live function, and it's mainly Engages for teaching. So it goes through my head when there's like what I mentioned before with the speaker, what has maybe this talking problem or whatsoever. Have you ever thought about speech to text and then text editing for editing reasons? Because I recently heard that this is now some softwares like Adobe and so on with plugins, they are supporting that you have a text and you actually delete a word out of the text and this element from the video is disappearing.
We do not have that functionality at the moment. We are, some of the development team are doing a research on speech to text. That is something we are looking into because accessibility features are something that is very important for Engage. We want to make Engage a lot more accessible for people who are hard of hearing. That's something that's very important, you know, and especially for education, inclusivity and making it as accessible as VR can be to everybody for the platform is something that's very important to us. So it is something that's being researched at the moment. We don't have any specific dates on when those kind of features would be added in, but I think closed captioning in the content editor and live captioning in events would probably be the kind of features that would come first. And then after that, the more automated AI type speech recognition features as well might be considered. But that's kind of the current thinking at the moment. But yeah, that is something that is important because yeah, we want everybody to be able to enjoy and participate.
Rick was asking a question in the chat a second ago.
Yeah, let's see.
I put it in there, just wondering along that same line of what Martin was asking, what about live translation features? So that's something that I've gotten to experience recently in Spatial that was very...
And how is it working for you?
I mean, again, I just tested it lightly with that was in there that national. It seemed to work pretty well from my perspective. Somebody in there speaking Italian and I saw English over their head. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, well, we should try it as a community sometime soon, because that's something that I definitely want to try but haven't had a chance yet. But yeah, like yeah, go ahead.
We saw it in Neos the other day. Actually, it was one of the first times I'd seen it implemented.
Yes, I joined Neos, but I don't remember. Maybe I just left a bit earlier before.
In the Japanese area.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, but like I said, it's something relatively new to me. I haven't seen it implemented prior to Neos. So I don't know.
But Neos is a completely different platform. So obviously we had just recently a meeting with the creator community, but every user can create their customized scripts and room and worlds and functionality. So it's as open for the creative community as it can be, but it's not straightforward. It's not super easy. Like there are a lot of, and also it's only PC VR. So there are a lot of limitations of this.
We had this topic in the very beginning when we all have been last year in Vibrella, because they have an audio system. What you can, a several layer audio system, what you can switch on and off. So if you, for example, for live translation, hire, because not only I have I was on several events in Cannes for automatic AI translation, and there was a strong community of professional translators, and they were like, that's absolutely not working. And
well, it's just a difference in between like getting some translation, and I think that will be there for a while. And the professional translation, if you want to have a movie or to enjoy the experience, it's not going to be AI.
So an audio and like an audio booth for translator inside of Engage would be very useful, I guess, when there's one person who's signed in as the person who is the translator. He gets the stream of the speaker, and then you can assign to him another stream to the audience, and they can actually choose between the translator booth and the live speaker. This could be something.
No, absolutely, and I'm sure like every platform will be evolving, because to be honest, it is requested quite a lot by the enterprise clients, because it would be convenient, even if it's not live translation, but to be able to choose your own language in the same environment, because at the current stage, for example, if this is a bilingual event, we would just be hosting different rooms, but then it means that people in different languages kind of are not interacting in between each other, which is obviously a limitation. And to be able just in the same room to be able to switch in between the kind of the audio in your preferred language, of course, that would be super valuable for events for sure. So a lot of things to hopefully to come.
Yeah.
David, before we move on, what is the lead time for uploading enterprise content to the platform? So say I have an environment and 50 objects to upload. How long would it take for me if I'm enterprise user?
We usually, well, to be honest with you, it depends on the level of the user, because it is an SDK. If it's somebody who is a proficient Unity user and knows how to set it up, and there's no fixing required, the turnaround is usually in a day. If it's a lot more complicated, like we often have a lot of assets submitted to us by people who may be 3D artists, but not game developers. And often there can be a lot of problems with content, in which case we're kind of, we have an educational role We have to kind of help and explain to people that to be able to run on the lightweight platforms, there has to be optimization and stuff like that. If there was no technical issues, it would go up usually within a day.
And in terms of optimization, the main fixing happens on the polygon side, or something else
It really
causes
depends on
problems?
Yeah, it really depends on the asset. So one of the great advantages of Engage is we support a whole load of platforms. Basically, all the major VR headset platforms, plus tablets, plus iPhones, Android phones.
Right.
So it has to run on the lowest common denominator. Unless you decide to make the decision and say, no, this content is only for PC, then you can do whatever you like and you just mark it as PC only, and it'll only work on the powerful systems. But if you want to support all the platforms, your content has to be able to run on the weakest platform. And
Right.
that's where the art of the game developer comes, or the artist, the games artist, in being able to make something beautiful but optimized as well. So yeah.
And the content editor works only on PC, even in VR. So I cannot edit content if I'm on Quest.
If you have Quest 2, it
Yeah.
should be enabled. Yes, you can use it on Quest 2, but at the moment I would recommend using it on PC, because it really you do need the extra processing power. Because if you think about it, you're scrubbing. Like, say for example, I have a chroma key green screen video here. I have 3D animation, and then I have large amounts of mocap data in the recordings, and you're scrubbing through all this data. It's not really realistic to expect essentially a mobile phone to be able to shift all that data effectively. It does on Quest 2. It's incredibly powerful. It's amazing how powerful the Quest 2 is, and the similar headsets which are being released right now, like the Focus 3 as well. We have an early version of that. Very powerful, excellent. But the first generation are just not able to do it. Like Quest, you would not expect a Quest to be able to do that. That's
Okay.
not realistic, you know. But yeah, but as the standalone headsets become more powerful, it'll be a lot easier to edit. Yeah, the next generation again, I'd say it'll be no problem at all.
How is it with volumetric data? Like at like Owlspace, where in this big presentation, like somehow bragging that they have volumetric stuff in Owlspace, but actually it was all a big video recording. Is something like this on the roadmap that you can natively support, like Kinect streams or something like this?
At the moment, if there's enough demand for a feature, we will seriously look at integrating it. It's not something that there has been massive demand for so far. But if you can integrate it and get it running on Unity, on our current version of Unity that we're using, it will load into Engage. So if you build a prefab that plays your volumetric animation in Unity, it will run. Now, again, it's back to the question of how optimized is it, and what hardware would actually be able to run your asset. That's the limitation there. But again, if it runs in Unity, it'll run in Engage.
Could I follow up, David? What version is the version that you guys are referring to?
I think we're 2019 to 21 F1, or we may have moved one version on from that. But that's if you use 2019 to 21 F1, you'll be safe. That's definitely compatible.
Okay.
What a pity. In 2020, I would have immediately have my volumetric prefab done, and I could directly try today with Engage.
You see, that's it. You see, anytime we update something, we have to be very careful, because we take all our clients' content very, very seriously. All the items in the library, when we change a version, we need to test. We have to test through the content, make sure it's working perfectly, and all the clients will know that they'll be assured the same level of service once we've updated it. It's a compatibility. It is a bit of a nightmare from our side, from the content team, but it's our commitment to make sure that anything that's created on Engage will continue to work smoothly and properly on Engage. So that's why we're very conservative and careful. But it's important for the stability for our clients, because we have a lot of people building educational material and other content on Engage, and it has to be stable and reliable.
Is there any way to bring the spatial recordings that were made like a year ago and play them on Engage? Or
yeah, if it runs on the well, I'll talk a little bit about the current integration path for content on Engage. Basically, we provide a Unity project. Any data you bring in there is fine. You build a prefab, and then we run scripts to bundle the data and essentially upload, and then it becomes available in the IFX menus, and that's it. So any kind of content that you can build a prefab for, we can package and upload. The limitations are the hardware limitations of the platforms we support. So the lightweight platforms won't support all the shaders that you might want to use. So you could create an asset, might work perfectly on PC, but if, say, Mac or Android doesn't support the same shader, you're going to have problems on that different platform. So in essence, it's the hardware that we support that is the limitation, not Engage itself.
Probably I posted the wrong question. So I have a recording made on Engage, which were made a year ago. So it's several versions prior to current version.
I don't think that it's a problem, because all the spatial recordings, if they were done inside Engage, they would play anyway. So
okay.
Yeah, of course, you can bring them in and continue playing inside Engage.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, so are there any final questions here for, specific to the content editor? Because if not, I think we're kind of on time we wanted to get into Engage as well and kind of take the conversation into more of an open discussion and see some of the other updates, because actually Engage has recently announced the 1.8 version update, right? I think in the last few weeks. So I think that includes a number of things. Alina, would you mind sharing a little bit of just information about what are the main aspects?
Sure. I think the best way to share that would be in VR. So if you just excuse me for 2 seconds, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to plug in my headset, because you're not going to be able to see the features unless I have hands. Okay, you should be able to see Engage now.
Yeah, we see it now. Yeah,
Great. Okay, so talking of unintended uses, yes, we do our daily meetings with the creative team every morning here in Engage. And yes, there's all sorts of wonderful creative uses that people discover for things. So for example, a seat, it is actually possible to sit in a seat and then pick up the seat that you're in, and you actually becomes a flying vehicle, which is useful if you're previewing artwork and you need to have a look at it from different angles. We do this, and you get to see behind the curtain, essentially, things that are not normally visible. But you don't have to worry. If you do fall, you get spawned back in the world. So it's not a big problem. But yes, chair flying has become an interesting sport on Engage, and something that people like to play around with. But let's have a look at some of the new features here. So before, we did cover some of the simple features. So just basic improvements. You'll notice in Engage 1.8, there's been a complete overhaul of the whole interface. It's a lot more unified and hopefully more professional and slick, and a little bit easier to navigate as well. We can see we have all these nicely designed functions here, all the different host controls. Actually, just since we're in Zoom and also in Engage, I'm going to mute myself in Engage, and we'll just use the audio from Zoom so we don't have an echo there. But you'll see we have new features.
I have some echoing of you, David, here inside.
I think if you just mute yourself in Engage and we continue with the sound in Zoom, that might be easier.
There we go. I've muted everyone in Engage there. Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Or we're going to go. We stick to Zoom go.
I think Zoom is okay, yes. But I think maybe people are unmuting themselves.
Okay, yeah, probably best not to. Well, the people on the Zoom call won't be able to participate in the conversation if we use the Engage audio. But anyway, yeah. So in Engage,
yeah, but we can unmute ourselves in the menu, I guess.
Yeah, but you just don't unmute yourself. We'll just use the Zoom. Yeah, I think maybe, David, if you just click the allow users to unmute, maybe if you unclick that, I think there's a...
Sure. There you go. I'm turning on your IFX and forms and all the controls. So you should have full access there now.
Maybe
Okay, looking at some...
David is speaking at the moment on Zoom. I switched Zoom silent as we are in VR, but I will open Zoom again.
There we go. Okay. So some of the other functions, let's have a look. We have, you'll see on your wrist, you just turn your wrist around and we have this new wrist menu. And one of the functions here is the 3D pen, which is a lot of fun indeed. I'm left-handed, so actually I want to swap over hands. That's much more comfortable. So we have our controls here, and then we have our 3D pen. So you can see, a lot of fun. You can mark things up, notes, all sorts of things. You can change the nib size, so you can do a lot larger. You can change the color. And you can do all sorts of things with the 3D pen here. And that one's quite good fun and useful for taking notes and education and teaching and communicating. So that's good fun. Once you've put down your drawing, you can actually pick it up just like an IFX. So you could even build like a minimalist stage for your play in pencil drawings or something there. That'd be a bit of fun. Let's see what else we have. We'll go back to our menus here. We now have whiteboards everywhere, which is very handy. You can just bring that up whenever you need a whiteboard. And similarly, it's now a lot more left-hander friendly, which is something that's important to me anyway. Yeah, there we go. We can draw, do lots of stuff. And you can also just
David, is that
grab it like that.
function on the wrist also?
Yes, hang on. I'm going to give you all host control, so don't go crazy. You can add co-host to everybody, so you now have equal controls to me. I turned on everything, but maybe the whiteboards wasn't part. But if you have, there you go. It's the bottom, the very bottom icon of the 4 icons there. And then we have the new and improved sticky notes. There we go. The traditional hello world sticky note that we can bring out. It's all part of just making things smoother, easier to access and easier to use wherever you need them. Let's see. Alina, what was any of the other functions that you found particularly useful for the new release?
1 second, yeah, I have to unmute myself in Zoom. I think that definitely also the upgraded search functions on the IFX. You already mentioned that, but because it's right now easier to find something that is needed. The 3D pen is definitely the highlight, and there is also another thing that we need to mention. Can everyone hear me on Zoom, right? Yeah, okay. Another thing that we need to mention is the Space Hub, which is the always on location. So obviously we're right now in just separate sessions, and usually Engage is known just for being a place where you run a session. People come here because they know that there is a session where they are waited, but we didn't have one space where everyone who is joining the platform can actually see and meet other people. So now there is an always on location, which is basically a persistent location where all the users can join just from the carousel menu, the main menu that see when you enter Engage. And it's a beautiful location. I definitely suggest you to visit that because it's just one of the best locations, and David James and his team just did an amazing job keeping all of that running and optimized for so many platforms, but at the same time making it so beautiful.
That's a very good point. Actually, the portals, I think, is another one of the really big features that came in. So I can demonstrate the portals here. Now, the portals is something that's we generally set up on the back end, but it's part of the persistent hub system. Oh, sorry, the persistent room system. So I'm just going to copy an ID. So what a portal is just as on similar platforms, on other platforms, you have an object that you can place down. So I'm going to go, this is somewhat the back end. Enter there. So I'm going to bring a session portal out, and I paste my session ID. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spawn a portal that is going to bring us to the public persistent room. So over here, this portal now, once I place it down, if you walk into that, you're going to be teleported to our public persistent session. So I don't know if people would like to try that out. If you're
Definitely.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to be leaving our session here and we'll be joining a public space. So we may meet members of the public that are not part of the group, but that's okay. We can join in. So if it doesn't work for you the first time, just step back and go through.
At the moment, the portal is for me just a text message above. There's no visual portal. Is that correct?
That is true. I can pop down a more visual version of it. Let me paste here.
So David, with this somewhat invisible portal, would that be kind of placed in something like a door context, or what would be the best use case? Well, I guess like this then. Yeah,
you should see. Has that worked for them? Great. If you want to, as everyone's left the room, okay, it's just me. I'll join them. Sorry about that. Okay, and what it does is it loads us into the public session. So we're in the public session now. So our private session is now finished and closed, and we're all completely into the public session. So here we go. Welcome to the Space Hub, everybody. So this is a public space. So this is somewhere where the public might go. If we have some nice examples of the updates actually for Engage here. If you have a look over in this direction here, there's turbo lifts, which are interactive animated objects. So that's objects that have colliders on them, and you can actually build interactions into them. And we build those in Unity and then make them available. So here we go. See you guys.
Nice. That's a nice piece of technique.
Yeah, it's great fun. And we really hope that this public space will be fun for people, and they can do their own like events and things here on the stage. And if there's anything that they want to share with the public that everyone can come and participate in, everyone's very welcome to come and do that on the stage. You might give a little public performance of a taster of your theater here on the stage or something like that, and just say, come and meet me in the public stage.
Yeah, we've been ideating on like a Shakespeare in the Park, but Shakespeare in VR type of group. Yeah,
that's it exactly. Yeah.
Spaces, yeah.
I believe it's 70 seats. We aim at 70 seats per location, but yeah, I think it's somewhere around the 70 number. That's what we aim for. If you want to come on, oh sorry, far away.
So yeah, David. Well, maybe you're responding to a question in World. Is that Andre asking a question?
Yeah. In that case, it would depend on the event organizer. We have both functions. We have an auto spin up for events. We have a system that automatically spins up additional rooms to handle extra capacity. I'd have to ask the developers because I'm actually not sure what we do with this public space. That's a very good question. I'm not sure.
It's a good question. I actually don't know either, but just to confirm that the last week for ViveCon, we were running both the Chinese event and the global event on scalable sessions. And for the global one, it was over 1,000 concurrent users on the platform at the same time, but obviously they were split into the rooms of like 50 to 70 avatars in each room, and that worked pretty well.
Yeah, it was great.
David or Alina, you two, because we can't hear Andre. Andre is not in Zoom.
Yeah, sorry about that. Andre, can you turn on your audio for the Zoom? Is that possible, or is it because?
If you can just kind of rephrase what his question was, because we have your answer, but just for those.
So yeah, Andre was asking about what happens in this public session if you get more than 70 users. And I was saying that I'm not sure, but we do have a system in Engage that automatically spools up additional rooms when you're doing events. And Alina was pointing out we had the global ViveCon event there last week, and we spooled up quite a few rooms, and it was I think we had close to 1,000 visitors at the peak for that one, and that was really exciting.
Yeah, over 1,000,
Yep.
definitely. I have one of the screenshots.
Yeah.
One is 950 and one is over 1,000.
So can I confirm as well what you guys are saying here, that it used to be that the cap on a room was, I think, 49, as I recall, but is it now 70?
It was 50.
Yeah.
And we kind of this is still a recommended number if you are planning an event, just because it really depends on the content. If you really optimize the content well and you rehearse and check on different devices, you can go up to 70 in one room. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
50 is a robust number that,
Yes.
regardless of the platform, or will work.
Ideally, yes. 70, it's just it depends on the location, how complicated your scenario, how much content you want people to load, because it really is a lot of pressure.
Okay. How do you feel, guys, about seeing each other in VR and hearing each other on Zoom? I mean, I literally miss the functionality of like muting myself on Zoom, because I cannot operate in VR on Zoom. Just curious.
It works pretty well, but I agree that it's not very convenient to mute yourself on Zoom. But then I guess that it allows also other users and those who will be viewing the recording to understand what is the question.
Yeah.
Sure.
The communication, etc. So it's not the recommended way. It's just
Just for this particular case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing is the example is this. The purpose of this room was to give an example of the portals. So we actually have several locations hooked up via portals here. If we go back down to the ground floor. And
you get these tunnels inspired by Tron.
Oh yeah, all the team. We love all the sci-fi stuff. Tron is a great movie. So what we have linked in these kind of space tunnels is we have portals that will bring you to another persistent live session. So this one is the Pompeii Theatre at night. And if you go in there, you're actually going into another persistent session. And in fact, I think I might just head in there now. So you can see it's loading up for me, and I'm going to appear in this other location. And then what I did was I set up another portal to bring us back to the main hub. So it's just a nice way to kind of navigate around sessions, and we'll see if anyone else decides to join me here. You'll see them coming in here through the spawn point. They mightn't have had the location data, so it's probably downloading from. There you go. Hello, welcome to Pompeii. So you can see, it's oh, someone's got. Oh, by the way, that is one thing. When you go through a portal, it starts you in a new session, so you'll get unmuted. So I'll mute myself, just to let you know. Yeah, and as you can see, here's the return portal, which brings us back. So that was another one of the big features that went in for this release. And let's see what else. Yeah, we'll run through the main productivity ones. And reliability, stability, new platforms, and then also portals as well. So I think that's kind of a rundown of some of the main features. We've also kind of been working on back-end stuff. So a lot of event support, scaling, reliability, network controls, and audio improvements as well. And that's something that you're not really going to see. It's just you'll have a generally better experience on the platform. And also, just as you would expect with any software product, we tackle technical debt and do improvements to make sure everything continues to work nicely.
Yeah.
And everyone is off exploring Pompeii.
Yeah, this
Nice.
has long been one of the more popular locations that we've seen, particularly because there's a day and a night version of this. But I think the night version, you know, just practically, I think the people we've taken into here prefer the night version.
It's got a bit of drama to it. I could
Yeah.
imagine myself being back here in the day watching a nice performance. Or
Just a quick note, I have to apologize. I will have to be jumping off just because I have a meeting starting. But thank you so much, David James. Thank you for the tour and for the updates. And I'm very happy that we introduced some of the creative features of Engage to the larger community. So hopefully it can grow in numbers potentially. And because Engage has been one of the favorite platforms for the community from the start. And hopefully we'll just be using it more and more.
yeah,
Thank you. I'd like to take the moment as well to express our thanks from the Zero Events and the XR Crowd community to you, David, and to Alina as well for joining us and helping to arrange this and make this possible.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, so it's always a pleasure to see how Engage is continuing to develop and to jump in there. I'll be jumping in myself a little later today so that I can get a peek of some of the things you guys were showing me here in the Zoom call. But so thank you for everyone for joining us today, and then thank you everyone who's going to be watching this a little later. Looking forward to our next event.
Thank you, Michael, for
Thanks very much.
always keeping us inspired and introducing us to every single new platform. Looking forward to our next event.
Yeah,
Thank you,
my
guys.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, thanks. It was
And,
really awesome.
Okay.
all right. Thanks very much,
Mike. Thanks,
everybody.
David.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully,
Great.
All right, thank
hopefully
you.
I'll see you there on the platform sometime.